Yeah! Crowd goes wild. Okay, Justin, you about ready? Fade down that music, Justin. Sir. Welcome everybody. I'm really excited to bring this panel to you today. This has been a 3-year in the making event. I've got a lovely lineup for you. We're going to be talking about some wonderful topics, not just about unique experiences from this lovely lineup of women in live television, but we're going to be having a real conversation about broadcasting and what it's like. We're just mainly going to be talking with some wonderful panelists that you all probably already know about, and we're going to hear about their life experiences and get some good intel from them. So, without further ado, I want to welcome our panelists. Come on and give me a big round of applause for our panelists. Come on out, come on out. Thank you. Take a seat, ladies. And you all know how to work those things. Real quick, this is our agenda of the day, right? We're just going to do a quick introductory of our lovely panel. We're going to have some questions for y'all. Feel free to send them in throughout the night. Joe Pringle, our lovely grad assistant, will be curating them and preparing for the second half of the panel as we go. Welcome to our lovely panelists. You all have your microphones on, right? I want to go down the line to start, and I'd like to maybe tell everybody a little bit about what you do in your current capacity, and then maybe we'll go by and talk about like how you got there, right? Can we start with you?
We can.
Addie, take it away.
So I'm Addie. I work currently at the Weather Channel. I work for Disney. I work all about town. I do broadcast engineering. I also do production coordination, production management. I've, in my current capacity, sometimes hire freelancers. So I have a lot of different hats that I wear and a lot of different types of jobs that I work. I work sometimes corporate AV. So lots of different skill sets and places that I interact with.
She's a jack of all trades. Very impressive. Beth Ann?
I'm Beth Ann Neblett. I am the Director of Broadcast Operations at the University of Georgia. I also do a lot of varied things, but mostly in charge of kind of handling our crew of freelancers, students, and kind of coordinating our broadcasts, and I also direct a lot of our SEC network broadcasts.
Wonderful, thank you. Beth Ann's one of the people I've known the longest on this panel. We probably met each other when we were, I don't know, like 18, 19? It's crazy, actually, to think about now. The other person I've known the longest on this panel, Trisha, tell them about what you do.
My name is Trisha Serber. I am currently a producer at NBC Sports. I am less jack of all trades as these two are, a bit more specialized. I currently work mainly on Sunday Night Football. I am our sideline producer, so I work with Melissa Stark on, what we want to add to the show, how we want to add it to the show, how we want to deliver it. Outside of that, in the off season, we sort of work on all sorts of different properties, different positions, sort of ranging from tape to AD to producer, sort of depending on which one it is.
Wow, that's incredible. I've known Trisha since 2014. Long time.
Long time.
Carly?
Hi, my name is Carly Welch. I work down the street at Georgia Tech. I'm an assistant director of video. I've been there for 13 years almost this summer. I also freelance for the Braves, the Hawks, the Atlanta Dream, the Weather Channel also, and just odd and end jobs here and there. Mainly graphics, and I produce a little bit and run Scorebug.
Thank you, Carly. Last but certainly not least, Maddie.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Madison. I am the Chief Content Officer for the SDH Network, which is a media company that covers soccer all around the state of Georgia, run by John Nelson of GPB and Jason Longshore, who's the color commentator for Atlanta United. I also do stuff with Atlanta United. I'm one of the voices of the twos, as well as the academy streams as well. And then I'm with 92.9 The Game, being the pregame and postgame host for the Five Stripes as well. And then just a freelance broadcaster covering everything soccer-wise, play-by-play, color, hosting, sideline here at Georgia State, and then as well all the way through to the NAIA level as well. So jack of all trades and so many different things, but yeah, no, freelance broadcaster, and the biggest thing, soccer's where I'm just always hanging out.
It's wonderful. I'm so excited. We have a lot of different perspectives here on this panel. I'm really excited to talk about it. One thing I want to do before that, I've surveyed a lot of the students at GSPN and BELT, our registered student organization, and the number one thing that I've been asked is for personal experiences and learning how to take the next steps. And I think a lot of people are interested to know kind of how you guys got here, how you got your start. So I'd love to do the same kind of question, but I'm going to come back the other way. Let's start you with Maddie.
I got my start, so I'm graduated Kennesaw State back in May of 2024, but it started before that. I actually ended up doing almost like a GSPN, but at Kennesaw State. It was called the KSU Owl Network. Basically, I started in production. I was doing graphics. Audio was the main thing that I worked on, doing stuff with them. I did camera work as well. But I started doing that, and then I transitioned over into broadcasting, and more specifically into play-by-play. Initially, when I got into this, I was like, maybe it's going to be sideline or hosting. Like, that's where I fit more. But I think after realizing more of where I wanted to go and my niche was, I realized I really liked the idea of, calling a game and being the one that you hear, telling the story of a big call or something like that. So that's where I then shifted. And then during all of that, I met Jason Longshore. One of the first games I ever did on ESPN Plus was with him. And as an Atlanta United fan, I was like, oh, wow, I'm doing a game with Jason Longshore. This is insane. This is crazy. And so I ended up just chatting with him, and I ended up shadowing him with the twos, and then that opened up the door with SDH, and it all just snowballed from there. Just me continuing to work and hustle with SDH opened up doors at Atlanta United to continue working with them, and then 92.9 as well. So it all started with that, basically. It was very nice. But it started at college, too, just getting that foundation, networking there, and then that opened the door for me to then meet some great people who helped me along the way and still are.
Totally. And for those of you guys who don't realize, too, KSU's facilities host a lot of soccer here in Atlanta. So there's a lot of kind of natural opportunity for that. That's a really great thing. Carly.
So I moved here straight out of college on a whim, on an internship with the football team at Georgia Tech. I was doing coach's video, so I wasn't really in the broadcasting world. Although that was my major, I just wasn't really interested in it. But I was making almost no money, and we shared an office with the broadcast department, which was 2 people at the time. And the student doing graphics was graduating, and I needed some money. So I was like, I'll do graphics. And whenever we went to launch the ACC network, Georgia Tech is a part of that, we expanded our department, and they asked if I wanted to switch. And I was like, yes, please get me out of coach's video. So I made a career change at like 29 years old. And it was like the best thing I've ever done. And so now I've been in the broadcasting team over there ever since. And like the team I work with is just so incredible, and it's led to so many other opportunities in and around Atlanta, outside of Atlanta. And yeah, I guess that's my story.
It's wonderful. And Carly's very humble, but she's literally the most knowledgeable expression operator that I know.
You're very kind.
She's very wise in the ways. Trisha.
So I, similar to Maddie, started in a college program. I went to Mercer. We, did all of our student-run programs similar to how y'all have here. So that's sort of where I built the base of knowledge. And then from there, I started at NBC straight out of college. I graduated, moved up there a week later. So I basically applied for the most low-level entry production assistant job that there is, knowing full well that I wasn't going to be doing what I wanted right then. So I did a couple years of, the crap work that nobody wants to do. But then from there, you start getting opportunities, and you move up, and you move up, and you move up. And so that's sort of like been the biggest thing for me, is I came out of college with a base of knowledge because of one of these programs, and then used that to get my foot in the door at NBC. And then once I was in there, I was able to just keep working and keep trying different things and, talking to different people, and moved up from there.
Yeah, it's a wild story. Everybody here has such an interesting story about how they got to where they are now. Beth Ann.
Same song and dance as everybody else. Started in college. The SEC network launched actually I believe it was my junior year, and I kind of joined in mostly my senior year, and I started as an audio A1, and it was kind of one of those things where it was an available job, and it got me in the room, and I listened a lot to producer, director, and just kind of took everything in. Eventually sat in every seat that there was, tried a little bit of everything, ended up mostly directing. And then after I graduated, stayed on for a few years just as a freelancer, had a part-time job outside of, working games, and just kind of made it work so that I could get more experience. And then took a full-time job at the University of Florida, and I was there for a couple years, just kind of in a similar role to what I have now. I would produce and direct and do graphics and audio and whatever else we needed, and then crewing and doing a lot of the logistics and coordination that I do now. And then 2021 came back to the University of Georgia full-time, and kind of just taking on more responsibilities from there.
That's awesome. Addie.
I think my story is a little bit different than everybody up here. I was a technical report writer and a software database, forensic database specialist. And the market crash of 2010 happened. And so I had a choice to make. I thought I can either, continue down this route of trying to be a software engineer for SAP or Oracle or one of those companies, or I could make a change and I could do something different that feels more fulfilling to me as a human and feels more like I'm participating in the world. So I spent a lot of time researching a lot of different types of degrees and different types of programs I could go into, and I knew someone who had worked in television, and I found a television production program, and so I went back to school. I fortunately had the kind of, luck of being a grown person who had kind of been out in the business world already for some time. So when I approached school, I approached it in a very matter-of-fact business sort of way. So when I went back to school, I called places and I found out what their placement rate was. I found out what their graduation rate was. I found out all of the information that I needed to feel like the program I was entering into was going to get me a job when I graduated. Once I got into the program, I immediately started working. And I joined clubs and organizations with people who were further along than I was in the process, so that when they graduated, there was a pipeline for me to have connections at these jobs to where I could get a chance to at least get an interview. Because I think, and if I'm just going to be honest about how I feel about it, you're going to, as a student, you're going to need to have people who are ahead of you and out working in the field to get you the interview. Because this is a very who-you-know business, and everybody in this business is getting interviews because they know somebody. So it behooves you to try really hard to make connections with people who are actually working in the field so that you can get a chance to, at least get the interview. Once you get the interview, I think you can get the job if you put the effort in and you've got the skills. But that's basically the way I approached it, was I'm going to meet people who are already there. I'm going to start volunteering. I'm going to treat this as an apprenticeship. I took every free opportunity that there was that I did not get paid for to try to get skills and information and find out all the things I needed to know to progress in the field. So that's how I came into the business, is like that.
That's outstanding. Thank you, Addie, and thank you all of you for giving a little background about what you do. So hopefully everybody feels comfortable sending questions in. But, I want to segue to the first topic that we want to hit on, which I think you already kind of talked about, but I want to dispel the myth of, that work is so glamorous and easy. A lot of what happens tends to be the invisible work behind the scenes. So I ask all 5 of you, how many times or how many of you have had to wrap cables or set up a camera, or by a show of hands, just put your hand up if you've had to do any of that. Yeah, there's only one person on the stage who's been an indoor cat the whole time, and it's very unusual. I want to throw it over to maybe Trisha first, and maybe this one's good for Maddie too, but, do you have any stories from those early days when you're in your college experience and you maybe had some experiences that you didn't expect to learn from that came back around later and helped you out in your job at another time? Can you think of something like that?
Yeah, so if I'm going to go specifically back to college, like obviously Chandler just asked us who's wrapped cables. I've never done that at NBC. We are incredibly separate, and this is production and this is technical. So that is not a road that I have ever gone down. However, when Chandler and I were at Mercer together, when we were at Mercer, you did a little bit of everything. So my very first show I ever worked at Mercer, I was wrapping cable for the Red Hat. And that is the only show that I ever wrapped cable for. However, I learned so much at that show just by being out there and watching everything. Like, I think when you're early in the business, you want to be so curious. You want to watch everything. And you're not going to know the answers to everything. So have questions. Be out there and be like, okay, I saw this happening over here. I was confused what this might be. Ask somebody. Because I'm a big believer that you may not do everything, but you should have an idea what everything is, like what everything that is happening. So you want to know what this person's doing. I'm not saying you need to know how to do it, but know what they're doing. So I think for me, that very first show of just standing out there, essentially doing nothing when the Red Hat walked out on the field, I let the cable go, and then I brought it back in after. It was the easiest show I've ever worked in my entire life. But I think I learned the most from that, not necessarily because it was the first one, but because I was in a position where I could watch every single thing that was happening out on the field. And again, I never really was out on the field after that. I went inside after that, but I knew what all of the positions were. I knew what all of those people were doing, and I was able to understand what was happening when I moved inside.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the same thing for me too. I think the biggest thing is asking questions. I mean, like seriously, when I got started doing production, I initially was a camera operator, and I loved it. It was my first game was a soccer game, and I was right on the field level. Like I was right in between the benches at the time. That's where they had, I think, camera 3 set up, and I loved it. I loved being in the action of it. Soccer's my sport. So I knew everything. I was getting shots. I think the first time that Sanders actually on the mic was like, "Maddie, that was a really good shot." I was like, "Yes, that's awesome. Let's go." So I liked camera for a little bit. And then I got moved into the control room for football because they needed someone else to do audio. And so when I started doing audio, you kind of pick up some things as well from when you're doing it in the control room. I then realized how much more goes into, I think, a broadcast as a whole. Because when you're on camera, that's just maybe 10, 15% of it. I think, seriously. I think it's just, you're the talent, you're talking about the story, but really, they're the ones behind the scenes running the entire thing. You know, they'll feed me, producers will tell me, like, hey, we're going to transition to this graphic. We're going to talk about this. And it's like they're the ones who are behind doing everything. But I think as a broadcaster, it's so important to have that experience. That way you can understand, what goes on behind the scenes. You get an understanding for it because, there can be people that you might work with who aren't necessarily nice to the people in the control room or the production room. And that can't happen because it all works together to make one big thing. But I started out doing all that stuff, and it was at the time, I don't think I realized that was where maybe I could go. But I think at the time, you learn a little bit more and you find more of those moments. And even now, I still run my own audio when I do radio games on the road. Because, there are times I'm driving from Kennesaw to Athens to call some high school games for the SDH network, and I got to make all of my own audio, and I got to make sure all of it's set up. And I know how to do that. I know how to run cables. I know how to set things up for a camera to get things set. But yeah, sometimes the work isn't glamorous. And, a lot of times for prep for broadcast, I think it's a lot more of just research and really taking the time to really, digest everything with it. But I think, it starts with just, I think, being curious about everything too. Because you might think you're going to go one direction and then it completely switches because you find something else when you're doing this career that you're like, ooh, actually, I really like this element of the job. I didn't realize I could do that before. And so asking questions is a big thing too, and just being curious and really just absorbing everything that you're being given.
Totally.
And Chandler, can I throw one more thing in?
Yeah, please.
I just want to be really fair because I did say that I haven't wrapped cable. There is crap production jobs as well. Like, That is not to say that because I went production as opposed to like doing something that's production and technical together, that there isn't crap invisible work that you have to do. So I just want to be very clear about that. I wasn't wrapping cables, but there's other stuff you have to do that's not fun.
What was the crap invisible work that you did?
So my first year as a PA, you basically are every single person on the crew's assistant. Like whatever they want, you do it. And I'm not talking you're getting them coffee and things like that, but they're like, I need this photo pulled off of Getty. And it's like, could they go look and do it 100%? But they have you to do it for them. So you'll just be sitting there with 45 emails in your inbox of random, useless, not useless, that is not fair, mindless jobs like that you have to do. So I would spend hours just pulling photos, and then somebody would decide that they wanted something that was off a tape from 1990, and I'm digging in the basement trying to find that tape to digitize it. So there certainly is crap work. It is just different crap work.
Yeah, does anybody else want to talk about their first crap work that they did? It's kind of hard to think back to those days when you're cutting your teeth, right? Yeah, either one of you.
I was just gonna say, I think that it all has value. All of the crappy jobs, you're gonna learn something, and if you don't learn something valuable, you're gonna learn perspective. So that whenever you're not doing the crap jobs anymore, you understand the people that are doing the crap jobs, and you treat them with respect because you've been there.
That's huge. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could share a story. Like, I mean, the first crap job I ever had was I was working for America's Most Wanted, and I was a PA for them up in Athens, and I had to like throw my super Southern accent on to get us parking and like stupid stuff like that. So, I mean, because I mean, they're kind of guerrilla shooting, so like they're out shooting a recreation for this like sex trafficking story. And like they're trying to find a place to park because there's like 50 of us on the crew and we've got like all this stuff. And I'm having to like pretty much saunter up to a business and be like, hey, y'all.
Yep. Parking's a big problem now.
They're like, do you mind if a few of us pull up here and park? And they're like, no, ma'am, go ahead, right ahead. So I was like, oh, perfect. So that was my first job, was harnessing my Southern powers to get us parking.
That's actually so entertaining. I didn't know that. That's crazy to think about. I'm sorry you went through that, though.
Parking is an issue.
Everywhere, it's an issue.
It's an issue.
Yeah, it is. They look who you're talking to. Georgia State might have it worse than all y'all.
I think y'all got us beat.
But I think we actually might have just done a very natural segue to the next topic I want to talk about. I think it's really important that we highlight it while we've got this lovely panel in front of us. But women in the control room is not always the most common thing, right? Traditionally, this was a male-dominated industry, and it still kind of is. And I think that a lot of people, I want to know about your perspective in this. It's difficult sometimes when people maybe don't take you seriously, or you have to put on accents or acts to have people hear you. Maybe we start with Addie, but I'd love to know your perspective on that. How do you overcome maybe we could call it the assumption of incompetence, right? Or the obstacles that happen just because you're a woman in this space?
I think it really depends on the situation. In some situations, like I try to come on to any job because I work probably 20 new jobs every year that I've never worked before, with people I've never worked before and conditions I've never worked before. So I have to be pretty able to go in and sort of absorb what the environment is with the people. I have to watch and see who knows each other, who has worked together before, and I have to kind of wait for an opportunity if something breaks and isn't working to show what exactly it is that I can do. Or there's even situations where, like, I punch and call the in-house show for the Atlanta Dream. So for their in-house show, I'll have to build shows as a TD, and I'll have to punch and call it myself. And so in those situations, I'm the only female, oddly, even though it's the Atlanta Dream, the only female that has come in and done a director role in the in-house production. So I have to come in there and have to be, pretty nice to people, and I have to, not be too assuming, and I can't. But sometimes I have to really put my foot down because they'll try to say, well, so-and-so does it this way, and they'll try to think that, because I'm new, first of all, and female, that I might be doing this differently than someone else, and I have to be sort of stern in those instances. So I think it really just depends on exactly what job it is, or where I'm going. I feel personally like I have to work twice as hard as everybody else in there to be seen as someone who's not looking for a free ride, because I think there's a big assumption that there's incompetence. I had another video engineer one time tell me that he paints cameras like I work on a computer, like you push pencils, and I'm doing the same job as him. So I've had to face, people who are going to be dismissive of me like that. And the only way that I can combat that is to come back at them with knowledge and skills and show them that I can do exactly what it is that they're doing, and that what I'm doing is the same value as what they're doing. So that's, I guess, the best I can say.
That's really great. Anyone else have anything that they want to say about that?
I agree about the proving yourself, like proving that you're competent, proving that you know what you're doing. I think that's my big thing, is like, I shouldn't have to come in here and tell you that I know what I'm doing. I would rather be able to prove it to you, number one. And I think for me, it's nice for me to be in a school control room where I work around, I'm the only female in my department, but I feel like I've earned the respect of a lot of the people that I work with, just through action and through proving that I know what I'm doing. But I think that also can become a double-edged sword, where a lot of people want to take credit for the things that you do and the things that you implement, because it's almost like what is it called, weaponized incompetence type thing. And I'm not saying all men, and I'm definitely not saying the people I currently work with, but in the past I have had that situation where people want to pass off my ideas as their own and think that they can get away with it because I am a woman, and that doesn't fly with me. So it's always something that you have to fight for. But I hope that people like us that work in this industry, that we are leaders that will kind of fight through that.
Totally. Carly, I know we talked about it too. How do you manage setting boundaries in those sorts of scenarios? The same kind of thing that Beth Ann said. I mean, you're one of the most expert graphics people I know, and Georgia Tech is so split up and segregated in the way that everybody does their specific jobs. Do you run into issues with that, or is that a better thing that way?
Well, one thing I'll say is that it never gets old whenever I go work on like a random truck show. And the second I give them like a really good graphic or stat, it's like, oh, okay. Like not that people are like rude or unassuming, but it's like you can kind of see the surprise on the face when like I know about basketball, or I know what a third down is, like. But I will say that in recent years, I haven't found there to be such a striking feeling of like unassumed incompetence. When I was younger, I think I was naive and I didn't realize that that's what I was experiencing. Do you know what I mean? I thought that I was new, and maybe I was a little insecure and felt like I didn't belong, so I'd go in and keep my head down, do the job, do a good job, and just keep it pushing. And then now that I look back, I do realize that a lot of the time people were maybe a little standoffish, or just like, oh, this is what we have today. You know what I mean? But I always got that call back. So I guess the way that even though I didn't realize it was happening, I just show up and I work hard, and I make them want to call me back. I make them want to not have anybody else in that chair if I'm available. But as in recent years, I've been blessed to work in really wonderful control rooms where I don't feel like anybody feels some type of way about me because I'm a woman. And I even work on the Atlanta Braves are actually produced by a woman named Gretchen Caney, and the Atlanta Hawks are produced by a woman named Jill Cook. And to be able to have worked on those crews, I know that they're not gonna like think less of me. Like, they have high expectations. So I come in and I meet that bar and they push me harder, and it's like, wow, I'm getting chills talking about it. I love working for those women. They're amazing. And like the control room environment that they create, it's like you want to work hard for them. You want to impress them. And so I'm taking those experiences when I work as a freelancer, and I'm trying to bring them back into our control room. And we have a lot of young women interns now, and I really want to be that same sort of person for them to look up to. So it's like I'm trying to change the narrative, little bitty pieces at a time, but I can definitely see an improvement from when I used to work on production trucks and I was unknown versus now. Like people are just like better. I don't know. Honestly, the
It's
culture
long
is
and slow.
evolving.
Yeah. Anybody else we want to talk about it? Because honestly, the next thing I want to talk about, I want to shift to the managers of the room, right? Sitting here on my side of the stage. We talk, the whole theme that I just heard there is overcome the assumptions of incompetence or discrimination or whatever you want to call it by being excellent, right? Working hard and being better than everyone else in the room. I want to talk about the stark difference between professionals that go that extra mile and those who do the bare minimum. And I want to start with the people who are managing teams and hiring people and have direct reports. What's the difference between someone who does the bare minimum and someone who goes above and beyond? And then, how do you motivate people? How do you work on your organization to avoid having those challenges? Take a minute. Either one of you.
I think mainly, I think that there can be two reasons why you have an employee or a person who works for you or that you're looking to hire that might be less likely to put their all in. And I think that this is what we had touched base with speaking about before is I think that organizations themselves can be structured in such a way that they are demotivating to the people who work for them. And I think as a student, you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared that not every job you're going to go into is ideal working conditions. There's going to be places that you're going to go that professional decisions are based off of personal feelings. And that is very difficult to cope with because you're going to come into that situation and somebody's going to get a promotion because someone likes them more than you or they've known them longer or some other very personal reason. And that's a very difficult pill to swallow, right? So a lot of people will take the route of I'm going to become basically a clock puncher because this manager or this organization doesn't care about me. They just care about themselves and the decisions they're going to make. But I would caution you against that because that's a pill that you're going to take that's going to poison yourself. Because that type of mentality will follow you like a virus everywhere you go, and it will infect your job and infect your work. And that's going to be something that will make you a clock puncher everywhere. So I've had that conversation with people who have worked for me, who I could see that upper management maybe was making some decisions based off of personal feelings. And I had to say that to them. I had to say, this is you. This job is not about the money you're making or any of that stuff. It is you and your efforts. Do you want them to be meaningless? And if you do, then you can keep your clock puncher attitude. But if you want your work to be meaningful, you assign the meaning. The job doesn't assign the meaning. The boss doesn't assign the meaning. You assign the meaning to the efforts you're putting out. So I said, you're going to have to change that. Route 2 that I take is I take a personal interest in every single person that works for me. I take an interest in their lives, how they feel about things. If they have to work Christmas Eve, I spent $600 out of my own pocket to buy chicken and cake because, some people, Christmas Eve is their Christmas, and the job was bringing in food for Christmas Day, but not Christmas Eve. So I took money out of my own pocket and I bought stuff for them so that I could show them that I appreciated their sacrifice for coming in. I had one girl who she worked an early morning show, had to be there at 3 o'clock in the morning, and she got an opportunity to go script supervise on a short film. And she told me she was never going to get that opportunity again. And she said, I really want a chance to do this. She said, how can we make this work? And I came in and I worked her shift for her for an entire week, in addition to my own shift. So I worked 3 a.m. to 9 p.m. every single day for a week so that she could have that opportunity. And that's me investing in her. Me investing in telling her that as her leader, I care what her life is like and what her choices and opportunities are. So that's the route that I chose to take to help motivate her. And I'll tell you, after that, every single freelancer in that place did help me anytime I needed it. So that's sort of what I've done.
That's a great
Yeah,
story.
I will second that. It's like the lead by example thing. If nothing is beneath you as a leader, then I think the people that you're leading respect you a lot more. If you're showing them that you're willing to do and capable of doing everything that they are doing, then they're more likely to respect you, listen to you, take feedback from you. A couple of my things are try not to make me say the same thing twice. Whenever I am giving you feedback or constructive criticism, and that if you don't want to take my criticism, if you think that I'm wrong, that's totally fine. But if you do respect me as a leader, if you respect my experience and I'm trying to help you by giving you feedback, don't make the same mistake again, because especially in live production, it's kind of the big no-no is like, you make a big mistake, that's cool, we're all learning here. If you make the exact same mistake again, it gets frustrating that, that feedback was given and it wasn't necessarily taken to heart or paid attention to. I think the other thing is, and I've seen people get into this at the higher levels of, oh, I'm producing or directing, and people will get to the point where they feel like they can't learn anything else. I don't think that anybody has ever maxed out in what they can learn and trying something new. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. It's totally fine. But I think that just saying that you are at the top of your capability in any position ever is not it. Like, you can always learn, you can always grow. And I think, that goes back to positive role models. I know that we all talked about, we've had positive female role models in this industry that we have learned from, and that we've taken a lot of what they've taught us and put them into action. But I think just wanting to be that role model for other people is what motivates me, and also just proving that I'm always ready to learn more, and I'm always capable of learning more.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Do the rest of you, I saw some looks. Does anybody have any other ideas about the idea of mastery versus being good enough in your careers and the people that you're working with?
I mean, I can add one thing.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, it's a little bit about what you were talking about earlier. If that chair's open, you want them to call you. If you're only putting in the bare minimum, they are not going to call you. So it's across the board. No matter what you're doing, you should attempt to do it as well as you possibly can. And that's not simply sitting in the chair. That's your boss emails you and wants a link of something. Don't make them wait 4 hours to do it. Just go do it. I think it's a lot of things that they're talking about are like big overarching topics. It's as simple as the little things. Do the little things, do them timely, and do them well. It doesn't always have to be these big, huge things. Be a person that they know that they can always count on, and that's going to take you a really, really long way.
That's excellent advice, truly. And everything you do, not even just live TV. I love that. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. This is a topic that my panel specifically requested me to talk about with everybody because I think it's such a hot topic issue right now. I'm going to start with Carly, put you in the hot seat. I want to talk about finances and career paths, right? Everybody here is excellent at what they do, but we have already highlighted everybody got in their seats very different ways, right? Some people are freelancing and worked thousands of shows with different companies. Some people have had one job that they've worked most of their shows with, right? So I want to start with you, Carly. Talk a little bit about the Swiss Army knife theory, right? Like, what is it like doing a little bit of everything, and what's the financial reality of that too? The kind of part nobody thinks about until you're already in it.
Well, it's exhausting. I do both. So I'm full-time at Georgia Tech, and I freelance every waking moment that I have available. My partner's here. He can tell you we're like ships passing in the night sometimes because he's also a freelancer with a full-time job in production. And it is like such a crazy, unpredictable schedule when you're a freelancer, right? Because you're chasing the money, you're chasing the job, you're chasing the reputation, you're chasing the relationships. So one other thing about like being somebody that they want to call back, you want to say yes all the time. Because if you start saying no too much, they'll stop calling you, right? So I am a yes woman. I work as much as I possibly can, and it's exhausting. So I can't. And then I also try to fit in my I fit in my full-time job, but I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to have more than like one day off doing nothing. I love it like that. I guess that's just the type of person I am. But in terms of finances, I've held on to the full-time job instead of committing to full-time freelance because, I mean, just being honest, like getting one check at the beginning of every month with a full-time job is amazing. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I can pay all of my bills. And then if I have to eat canned beans for the rest of the month, I can do that. But all of my bills are paid. Do you know what I mean? Because I know I'm getting that check every month. And as a freelancer, it's kind of hard to budget because I might go work this job and make $500. Okay, great. The check comes in, $500. It's not $500. You have to set out your own money for taxes, and you have to do all the math that comes with that. And then, like, it gets very convoluted. So I would definitely don't just think that when you go to these freelancer jobs, that's 500, 1,000, 1,500 if you work 3 games, because it's not. And that's something that as silly as it might sound, I was not aware of in the beginning. So I had to play a little catch up, but it's all good. But like, it's just something that I just think people don't talk about. Like, you're a kid, and I don't know about y'all, like, I love my parents and they love me, but they didn't really talk to me about taxes and stuff. And we didn't really cover that in college, which I think should be a thing. But I learned the hard way, and I would rather, if this is something you guys are considering getting into, just please know that you have to take out your own taxes if you are a freelancer.
Yeah, I mean, as a freelancer, yes, you do. And as being someone who's 23 and like still new to all of this too, you want to be the yes person a lot. Sometimes when it comes to starting out, especially I think on air side, sometimes you maybe do a couple of jobs that aren't paid for. It's about building your reputation, and it's about building your repertoire, and about building your reps and making sure you're getting those moments. I'm still doing that now, and being a full-time freelancer, it's it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But I'm fortunate enough that I do have a consistency, especially with Atlanta United, doing that stuff that I do there. But it's a lot of, going back to the conversations of just, I think being kind and being someone who's reliable. That's a big thing, because it's like you said too. You want them to want to call you back. You want them to be the one saying, "I want her to come back and I want her to do this role." That's what you want to do. And when it comes to the money element of it, especially on air, it's a balancing act, because you want to be able to say yes to the jobs where you are going to get the reps, but then you're also, okay, but I also do have to pay bills. So it's, trying to find that balance there. I know sometimes I'll pick up some jobs like back at home, occasionally helping out at a business as well, helping out just some other like side gigs here and there, just to make sure that I'm doing a little bit more to make sure I'm getting a little bit of extra cash on me as well. But I mean, it's a balancing act, which is why I think in college, when you get the opportunity to do a lot of this stuff, when you get the opportunity to be in the control room, to do on-air stuff, you take advantage of it, because this is your time to do that. It's your time to get the opportunity to say yes to everything, to just try every single thing that you can, and maybe making some of your own luck too. I mean, the amount of times I set up my phone and I recorded myself doing stand-ups to post on social media to get reps. That's how Jason noticed me in the first place, was doing the stuff on social media there before I did the game with him. Like, that's a big element too, but you got to create your own luck sometimes with that as well.
That's fantastic. Okay, I'm going to go to the other side. I want to go to Addie. In a career where it feels commonplace that people are jumping ship every 2 years and changing companies and stuff, what's the value on the flip side of staying with a company like the Weather Channel for 13 years?
There's a lot of value. I mean, I also freelance like they do. So I'm just going to be blunt and be honest, linear TV feels frightening to me. I'm just going to be honest, and I'm going to say that, probably NBC is a lot more stable than some of the other.
I don't feel particularly frightened, but I think it's slightly different. We have streaming. We have a lot of other things going on. It is not purely linear.
Sure. So, so in your case, it's probably less frightening. In my case, it's pretty frightening. So not answering your question, but kind of piggybacking off of what they're saying, I don't feel particularly able to just rely on that particular income. I don't feel able to rely that job is going to be around forever. And so that motivates me to get out and freelance. And to piggyback off what they're saying, I've been a person, there was a time at Weather Channel where I was staffing 23 shifts with 55 freelancers per day. And when she's saying, you know, say yes all the time, there's a reason for that. If I've got, 23 shifts per day that I have to fill, the less amount of phone calls I have to do is better for me, especially when I'm having to purchase gear, I'm having to buy cameras and lights and do other engineering stuff. It's way easier for me to take the person who's doing a good job and says yes every time. So that's why a person who's in that position is going to call Carly every time, because they know she's going to do a good job and they know that she's going to be responsive to them. So that's a very good piece of advice. As far as your taxes and stuff are concerned, if you are a full-time person and you do freelance work, you can expect to pay half of your 1099s in taxes. So that's just the way it is. So if you're a freelancer, there's like purely 1099, there's lots of deductions that you can take. But you don't get those if you have W-2s and 1099s, just to throw that out
The
there.
amount of papers I have sitting on my desk from my 1099s is a lot.
Yeah, I just did my taxes, and I had 7 1099s, and I had 5 or 6 W-2s. Yeah.
That's wild.
So it's, can be a lot, but then what was your other question?
Being 13 years at the Weather Channel.
Oh, yeah.
What's the advantage?
I think the advantage is that being there that long, I've gotten an opportunity to basically do what I want. And I know that that sounds like a brat, but literally I get to do what I want. Like I get to, if I want to touch into financing, I can do finances. I work with every single department within that facility. I work in finance, sales, I work with producers, I work in editorial. Like I get to literally do any type of job I feel like doing. And to me, as a person who would get bored doing the same job all day, every day, it feels great to be in a position where I get to do any type of project I want to do. I can edit, I can do anything I want. And that feels pretty great and pretty freeing. So that's my advantage.
That's a great answer. I'm going to go to Trisha next. 9 years and who knows how many more at NBC. What's your perspective on the topic?
Yeah, obviously a very different perspective from everybody else up here. The nice thing is the stability. I'm getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, whether I worked 100 shows or whether I worked 0 shows, and that paycheck is going to be exactly the same. So the stability is nice. I worked there through COVID. We were completely shut down. There was no sports happening. I was still collecting a paycheck. So I'm sure as you guys can understand, like that was very, very nice. However, you do what you're told. You don't necessarily get to pick what show you want. I know you talk about say yes to everything, but if there's something you hate, you can say no. If there's something I hate, I can't say no. I have to still do it. However, as we're talking about you saying it scares you a little bit, NBC doesn't necessarily scare me because in our particular world, we have NBC Sports, we have Versant Sports Network that's underneath NBC Sports. We have our streaming service on Peacock, and sports is the moneymaker for NBC Universal. Sunday Night Football specifically makes so much money for this company that, and I'm on that show, so I always talk about how that's a huge protection for me. It's a very safe space to be because it brings in so much income that they need those people. So for me, I think the stability is super, super nice. However, if I'm talking about last football off season, we really didn't have any properties going on. So I'm not even joking when I told you I did not work for 2 months. And that can conceptually be like, fantastic, you didn't work for 2 months. But also when all of your friends are working and when everything's happening, you're kind of just twiddling your thumbs for 2 months. And we can't freelance. If you work for NBC, you work for NBC only. So there's positives and there's negatives. I'd say the big positive is the stability of it. I go to bed every night. I'm not concerned whether I'm going to be able to pay my bills. I know that paycheck is coming, so that's very nice from my perspective. However, it locks you in more. You can only do the properties that NBC has. If I, decide that I want to go work on beach volleyball, can't do it because we don't have it. So it's a give and take. But the stability of it, I think, is my key point that is really, really nice for me.
That's fantastic. Okay, so to finish off this piece before we take a little intermission, I promised you guys it was coming. I want to hear some interesting stories about your favorite kind of oh shit moments. I'm going to start with Beth Ann, who specifically made a point to me also. It's not always a bad thing, but TV is very unscripted. So we all in the business have a lot of those sorts of memories and times that have happened. I want to know, what kind of story you have and what happened, right? How did you solve it? What happened?
There's plenty of these stories because technology is sometimes, all the time, very unstable. So probably my most interesting one, it was COVID. It was live from home. That's the trigger word for everybody here, probably. But we had the producer live from home. I had my graphics op live from home, the play-by-play analyst, and I think the AD was also live from home. So they're all literally like sitting at their house with like a screen and talking on probably headphones to me in the control room. And it's me and the TD on the front row by ourselves. So I'm directing. We're on E2, Florida softball. And we have our plan in place. We rehearse, do all of it. We go on the air at noon. And I hear the producer count down on my ear. And as soon as we go live, right at noon, silence from literally everybody that was remote, including the play-by-play analyst. And we go on the air, and I was like, okay, well, we're doing the open like it's scripted, but nobody's saying anything on the air. So I just went through with it, just kept going. Come to find out, the network switch that everybody was on had like alarm bells all morning, but it was a like campus network switch. It was not our like internal engineering network. So the campus just was like, oh, we'll shut it down. There's too much traffic on it. Shut it down right at noon, just as soon as we went on the air. So our engineers are scrambling. We ended up getting a radio feed up to go over this ESPN2 production. And we rode that out until we got the switch back up and everybody came back live around the third inning. This was the same game that somebody tried to steal home plate and ran into the catcher, knocked a tooth out, went back into the game, and hit a walk-off home run. So it was a very interesting day altogether. But yeah, that was pretty wild.
I can't say I've ever done a silent show open. That's incredible. Okay, I want another story. Who's next?
I can go.
Yeah.
I worked a hockey game once. We're in the middle of the second period, and the truck completely lost power. So all of our monitors went black, all of our comms went black. However, we found out that somehow we were still on air. So we literally, everybody called one of our camera operators. We put all of our camera operators on speakerphone, and we started just attempting to tell them what to shoot from our truck with nothing. They were telling us what was happening out there. We were trying to tell them what to do. It was a mess and a half, but that's sort of one of those things where it's going to happen to you eventually, and you just have to roll with it. Like, the big thing is you just cannot panic. Panicking is the worst thing that you can do. If you stay calm, you'll figure it out. Like, obviously, that is not ideal. You never want that to happen, but it did happen. And so you got to stay calm. You have to figure out a way through it and go from there. And so everybody's going to have one of those situations. Knock on wood, I hope we never lose power in the truck again, because that's just about the worst thing that can happen. But you just have to think on your feet, think quickly, and figure out a way around it. And I think that's sort of a metaphor for live TV in general, is you come in with a plan, and sometimes even that plan doesn't go the way you want it to. You think the game's going to go one direction, and it goes the other. It doesn't always have to be the truck losing power, but things are not going to go the way that you want them to go, and you have to be nimble. You have to think on your feet. You have to not panic and just figure out how you're going to make your way through it.
A mighty NBC truck losing power. That's unbelievable to me. Okay.
Some engineers were getting yelled at. I can tell you that much.
I think this happened to me twice. The different times, but there was one time when I was still in college doing KSU, my in-ears. So if you're a sideline reporter, you have basically like in-ears, which are just like a small headset that allows you to feed to the producer. You can hear what's actually going live on air too. It completely shut off right before I went on and did my first hit on camera. And I was in college, like one of my first games, so I was like freaking out. I think the same thing kind of happened when I was doing the GPB State Football Championship. Just like something lost in the receiver, and I couldn't hear them. And like I know we were about to start the open, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, oh no. But then it came back like I think maybe 30 seconds before I was about to go on. So I was like, okay, we're good. Everything's fine. I was like, we're good. Everything's great. I'll give a fun one too. I was able to travel with SDH in 92.9 to the 2024 Atlanta United playoff series against Inter Miami. We had the first game. I was at the first game. Second game was at the bench. The third game, we were there, and it was all of us. Our photographer was there on the field taking photos. We were there, but I'm sitting. So Mike is right. Mike Conti's the play-by-play, sitting like to my left. I'm in the middle doing live tweeting, helping them with stats, stuff like that. Jason's to my right. And this was when Miami had equalized. And Leo Campana had pushed Brad Guzan into the net. And I don't know if anyone's seen the video, you could look it up. Brad is like flailing in the net, like a spider caught, like it's insane. And then at the second that Campana comes up and like challenges him, I mean, I've never seen Brad move that fast in my life. Brad like flung out and like was like, "What'd you say?" And I don't think I've ever seen Mike or Jason get that mad before. And I think I stood up too, and like I almost lost my laptop in like the front row of like Inter Miami Stadium. But I mean, I think that's the other like unpredictable chaos of like a live broadcast is you never expect someone to get shoved into a net, and then you see Brad just regain a second life, and he just like appears. But I mean, that's the fun stuff that you do it for. I mean, that's what's so fun about it. I mean, you always love getting the chance to call live sports like that because it's just, when are you going to experience that again? It was an incredible time. So yeah,
We love the chaos, right? I mean,
we thrive in the chaos.
Carly?
Okay, this one isn't really from my broadcasting days, but this was my job when I worked for the football team at Georgia Tech. I was an intern for 2 years, and like I said before, I came straight out of college, so I was like 22, I think, when this happened. We were really good that year, like best year we've been in the 13 years I've been there. My boss and I were in the back of you go to hotel rooms and you set up meeting rooms for the coaches to watch film the night before the game. And so we were sitting in the room, the players were having their meeting, they all left, and my boss literally starts like rolling around on the ground. Like, I can laugh at it now because he's totally fine, but this man, like, I think he had kidney stones among other things, and he had to get rushed to the hospital. And I was like, no, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this. So then we went into Athens the next day. My boss is still in the hospital. I had to do all of the film editing. I had to like tell the kids where to go and what to do. When I say kids, they were my age. Like all these seniors are like 22, 23. I think I was 23 at the time. And so we ended up winning. The third quarter somehow got completely fucked. Sorry, but that's what happened. Like, we couldn't view it on the bus ride home. But fortunately, our coach didn't really care because we won the game. And like when Georgia Tech beats Georgia, it's like a big deal. And then my boss stayed in the hospital for like 3 weeks. So then when we played at the ACC championship in Charlotte, he also was not around. So I grew up and learned the job very quickly. I was the one going to the office every day, making the game plans, all while I was getting paid as an intern, which was like 3 figures a month. It was the roughest time of my life, but then shortly thereafter, they made me a full-time employee. So I think that's where I earned my stripes.
That's wild.
It was insane.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, Addie.
I have different types of stories.
Yeah, it's fine. Tell me a story.
So there's a couple of stories that I would say that have something to do with me, but not entirely to do with me. There was one shot where Paul Goodlow, our on-air talent, which I buy all of our field gear to, so like I have to buy all the cameras and stuff, and I have to support it. So if they have problems in the field, they call me 24 hours a day. So one night, it's like a Saturday night, and I get a phone call, and it's Paul Goodlow, our on-air talent, and he's like, "Hey, the guys you hired as like my camera operators like laying on the ground right now." And I was like, "Oh." And I was like, "When are you on air?" And he's like, "We're on air in like 8 minutes." I was like, "Shit." So I was like, can you ask him, like, what's wrong? Like, can you ask him, like, what he's feeling? And he's like, I don't know. He's not really talking. I was like, you're going to have to call the ambulance. And I was like, and I'll walk you through setting your shot, you know? But, like, we had to, like, literally walk him through setting his shot, and he had to call the ambulance. And I always knew that that would be the case. Like, I'd work live shows, and I'd be like, if I fell over, like, pretty sure they just step over me and, like, keep going on the show, you know? So I was like, pretty sure that's the case, you know? And it actually was the case when this happened. It actually was entirely the case. Wow. So I had that kind of situation happen. There was one time I was working Weather Channel where I was working, one of the shows was you had to do the robotics cameras, and we had like 15 of them in 3 different studios, and we had to do teleprompter. And one of the directors, Brad Roberts, was like trying to impress his friends in Texas, he said. So his show was exponentially complicated. And like, I'm working the show, and like all of a sudden, the speakers in the room go out. And I'm supposed to be doing teleprompter and doing manual pushes because, oh yeah, by the way, the lens file, we had 2 different camera systems, and one of the lens files didn't work, so you couldn't save shots. Like, you had to like manually push and stuff. I'm like manually pushing and like lip reading to like roll teleprompter at the same time because like there's no way for me to know what they're saying. And that was like probably one of the most difficult like situations that I've ever personally had.
That's an absurd scenario.
And my last scenario is when I used to do college basketball. I did high school football. I shot handheld highlights, and then for college basketball, I was the under basket shooter, and I got plowed over and was reset and back in shot before play started. So
that's just being a good handheld operator. That's awesome. Okay, everybody give this panel a round of applause. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll come right back. Come on, ladies. Yeah, flip your mics off if you would. Take a breather. We're going to do questions when we come back. Please submit your questions if you have any for our lovely panelists. You're on it, Justin. No rush. You're good. Can I get a little round of applause for our panelists coming back out? Yeah, thank you, thank you. All right, so hopefully, I'm gonna give Justin a second for the music. He's good, he's good. He's gotta get his earbuds in. We're in no rush. I love it. Hopefully y'all have been submitting some good questions. Jo is gonna curate the rest of them for us. She's been diligently looking. I didn't mean to ruin your clip. She's been diligently filming, studying, planning out the questions. She's gonna come on up here and ask a couple questions for our panelists now. Jo, you wanna come up? Everybody give her a round of applause. Come on up, Jo, come on, come on.
Okay, thank you, Cameron, for that, by the way. All right, we're gonna jump right in. You guys had a lot of good questions. I tried to section it, prioritize it as much as I could. We're gonna start with first one. First one is, in a male-dominated space like sports broadcasting, how do you all stay confident even when the environment around doesn't reflect you? Good question.
Take it till you make it.
No,
Actually,
yes.
it's like, and I'm not saying like lie on your resume. That's not cool. And also don't lie about things that you've had experience with. But if you have been observing and you've been practicing, you've been putting in the time to kind of get up to speed, get to where you feel confident that you know what you're doing, even if you're nervous, even if you feel like you are an imposter, fake your confidence until it becomes real.
I think also like just be yourself, I feel like is a big one too. Because I feel like so many times you can get caught in like, especially if you're dealing with someone who maybe doesn't see, I think, value or like kind of looks down on you. I feel like it can get so easy to kind of bring yourself down to that level, like where you start to believe that too. And you start to maybe change things to where like you fit, okay, maybe if I do this, this person's going to like me and that's fine. I think you have to just be you, because even from not even an on-camera standpoint, even from just an off-camera, you know, like I think you just have to be yourself. Because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what people are going to be hiring you on, especially if you're a broadcaster. You know, I always like to say that I'm a more 2,000% version of myself when I'm on air. What you get right now is what you're going to see on air, maybe just a little bit more high energy. But I mean, you're hiring for me. You're hiring because you want to hire Madison Cruz. You want that person on camera. And I think you have to be authentically you in any space, whether it's on camera, off camera, in the control room, and anything. I don't think you should diminish your light just because somebody else wants you to.
I'd also say, like, find your group of people. Just because you're in a male-dominated industry does not mean that every male there is going to try to put you down. There's many that are lovely. So find your people. Find the people that you know you can talk honestly to. They'll give you honest feedback, and stick around them, because those are the people that are going to help you go through. Those are the people you're going to go through together. So it's not all bad. Like, you'll find the ones that you trust, that they trust you, and you guys can give each other constructive criticism so you know truly what you can work on, not what you can work on because somebody's trying to put you down as a female.
I would say specifically in sports broadcasting, knowing your sport goes a long way. If you know the game, then you can figure out all the technical stuff. I always say when we have student interns come in, most of the time I would prefer to have a student that knows the sport. I can teach you the computer and the technical stuff. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, obviously. But for the most part, I would rather that than somebody who's very technically savvy that doesn't know how a run is scored in baseball. I've had students like that, and we've taught them, and they've become wonderful. But yeah, I think it goes a long way if you actually know your material.
Personally, I've always worked in male-dominated fields, whether it was in this or whether it was in software development or any of that stuff. I've never worked in any job where it was not male-dominated, and I pretty much had to stop caring what other people thought about me. And I don't mean like be rude or anything like that, because my personal philosophy is that we're all companions in misery. That life is hard for everybody, so I'm going to be nice to everybody because everybody's suffering in the same way I am. But at the same time, I'm going to be pleasant, but I'm just not going to care what anybody thinks as far as like, am I going to care that they're judging me because I'm a woman? No, because it doesn't matter to me. They are strangers or people I will work with one time, maybe 5 times, but they are not people that I go home to or that matter to me in any other way. So I'm going to conduct myself in a professional way, and I'm going to be kind to people and nice and friendly and all that stuff, but I'm just not going to care. Like, I hate to be this way about it, but I'm just not going to care what those people think, because if I let them in my mind, now they control how I feel about myself, and now they control what I do, and I'm just not going to do that. So that's my
I was
philosophy.
just going to add one more thing kind of like that is don't, if they're willing to basically treat you like you don't belong, then they deserve to be called out and embarrassed by their behavior. So don't be afraid to call it when you see it.
I'd also say use all of that and use it to light a fire under you. Don't let it break you, let it make you want to prove them wrong that much more. You just have to sort of change the way that you think about it. Don't take it as, oh, they don't like me, I have to prove this, I have to prove that. Use it as an opportunity to prove them wrong. And, give yourself that confidence that you want to do this, you want to prove them wrong, and you want to be great at it.
As women who are redefining this field, what has been the most significant shift that you've seen in this industry? And conversely, what obstacles do you still feel like need to be overcome or dismantled for the next generation?
I mean, I'll speak, I think, from the broadcast standpoint. I think you're seeing a lot more women step in the role of play-by-play, which I feel like is something you haven't seen a whole lot of. And I mean, even we look at male sports, but even look at women's sports. I mean, for a long time, even for women's sports, it was still male play-by-play. And I'm on the firm belief where if you're good for the job, you should do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a male or a woman. It shouldn't matter. If you're good for the job, you should do it. And I think, especially too, like, for me, I like to talk about both men's and women's soccer, and I think vice versa. It should be anything. Soccer is a universal sport. I mean, it's the exact same across men's and women's. There's literally nothing different about it. Same rules. Y'all play with the same ball. As far as I'm concerned, it's the exact same goalpost. I don't think that shifts. Everything is the same. So it doesn't matter. But I think you're seeing a lot more women step into that role, which I'm really excited about. One of my really good friends, Jessica Charman, is incredible. She's now a play-by-play for MLS and doing stuff with them and Apple TV. Love her to death. But I think there still can be more. I think there still absolutely can be more in so many different areas. And I think you're seeing it more universalized, which is great. I think you need to see more of it, but I still think there's still a few people that maybe are so set in that traditional mindset of, oh, a man can only be play-by-play. When it's like, it's no. I mean, you see male sideline reporters, you see male host, you see male color, you see women play-by-play, women color, women host, women sideline. I don't think it should be a matter of, oh, like it has to be one way. It can be, whoever's good for the job can do it. I think play-by-play specifically, you're seeing a big jump in it. I do think there can be more steps to, I think, universalize it even more as well.
I would like to be very forward with you all. In production trucks and production rooms, I don't see this as much now. I kind of touched on it earlier. I do feel like the culture has been evolving. But for a long time, I would walk into a production room or a production truck, and I would keep my head down, do my job, go home, do it well, like I said. But a lot of the times, the people on what we call the front bench, the producer and the director, the people running the show, they had these huge egos. And they're talking down to everyone. And it wasn't just me. It wasn't like a male versus female thing. I mean, I'm sure there were instances where it was. But like my partner and I have both worked for like a director that has been very condescending, and we'll go home and talk shit about it. You know what I mean? And like I I am so happy to see that the industry is evolving to where like people that have done the smaller jobs are in those front chairs now, and so they're not talking down to people, and they understand, and they're more patient, and it's more of a team environment, not like you screwed me over because you didn't have this replay ready. It's more like, okay, just don't do that next time. And I would really just like to see that continue to evolve to where we remember that everyone in that control room and on the staff are human. You're not better than me because you're in a higher position than me, period.
Yeah, I agree on the breaking the cycle of the types of people that end up in those front row positions, and also the way that they speak to people. And I think maybe that is where women are seen as, I guess, less um, less direct in that way a lot of times, where we are possibly seen as like the more mild version of these men with huge egos that will talk down to people. But I think that's what we need, and not just for other women coming up in this industry, but we need the men that are coming up in this industry to see that you don't have to scream and yell at somebody to get your point across. You don't have to come down on somebody hard just to have them respect you, because yeah, they're going home and they're talking about you and how they don't like working with you. But if we all want to move forward and break that cycle of the negative aspects of this industry, then we all need to be a little bit more kind to one another and just realize that it's not the end of the world. Like, we're all still learning, and no matter what position you're in, you're still learning, you're still growing.
I would say that one thing I've seen change a lot, because I think the question was, what have I seen change? And then what could continue to change? Is that true? I would see that what I've seen that's changed is when I first started working sports, and I'm just going to be pretty raw and real about what I'm about to say. Heard men in the control room talking real gross about women's bodies that they saw on the camera. They were saying gross things about women who were working the cameras, women who were in the audience. They were saying nasty things. And I'm just being honest, like, it was as a person coming into this field, coming from a professional world where that kind of talk was not allowed. Like, I came from software development. Like, this is like insane to me to come in here and hear these people criticizing and judging the women that are being filmed and don't even know it, and saying these awful, nasty things, either positive, nasty things, or what they saw as positive, nasty things, or just straight up talking about how much they weighed, or like all that kind of objectifying terminology. And I found it to be pretty abhorrent and pretty gross. And I came and I did my best to tell people that I think that's wrong. I don't think that's okay to talk about people like that. I don't think that you should ever be discussing a person's appearance like that. Like, sure, if you see someone's hair out of place, I mean, that's one thing. But like, to sit there and like feel like you as this man can sit in this chair and talk about how that woman looks is just absolutely wrong from my perspective. And I've seen that change over time as more women come into the industry and we start saying stuff like, why are you saying that? Like, I've said that. I'm like, why do you think? And I mean, is it okay to be like real? Like, I mean, I have turned and looked at a director and been like, who the fuck do you think you are? I'm like, you are fucking obese and old and ugly. And how dare you think that it's okay to talk about this poor 24-year-old girl on the stage and talk about how you think her boobs are too small or her gut is too big. I was like, look at your own gut, dude. And it's like, I mean, I hate to be that way about it, but like, it was really upsetting. And I've seen that change quite a bit. I worked a NASCAR show that was entirely women, and that was pretty cool. Talking about egos, I worked a World Games show in Birmingham with a Polish crew, and they never once raised their voice at anybody. Because guess what? People know when they made a mistake. That camera operator knew he was out of focus when you came to him. You don't have to scream at him and tell him that he's out of focus. He knew that.
Also, it's not going to happen any faster if you scream at them.
Exactly. And now all you're doing is you're creating this nervous system response from the person that you're talking to, and they're going to overcompensate for everything after that. So now your show is going to be worse than what it would have been because the person is on hyper alert and they're overcompensating and they're changing things that don't need to be changed. So, like, there's no reason to have that ego and there's no reason to act that way. And I think women and younger people who are just quite frankly not going to put up with that, like, they've been raised in homes with, like, Barney telling them how to behave in the world. They're not going to come out in the world and be like, hey, you know what's cool? Being mean to other people. Like, that's just not going to happen. So younger people getting out and getting involved and speaking up and saying that these things aren't okay, women saying that they're not okay, I see that changing stuff, and I see it making it better. Do I think that there needs to be more? Absolutely. I think men need to stop thinking that they're the only ones that understand science, and that women can do technical jobs, and they can do technical jobs in television or any other place. It doesn't have to just be, you know, in front of the camera, or, you know, not even just not getting to do play-by-play. Like, you don't understand sports enough to do play-by-play. You know, I mean, that's just ridiculous. So I think the more we get involved and the more we participate, the better it's going to be.
I'd also add one thing, that as more women get in there, it's become sort of like you have each other's backs. And it's not everybody has a meeting and it says we're going to have each other's backs, but you do. You inherently do. If somebody's talking about your body in a room that you're not in, but there's another woman in it, you go tell them. It's just sort of you have each other's backs. And I think because there's more women being involved, we know what's happening more, and we are able to help each other out and sort of stop the cycle of all of this happening because we're telling each other and because we're trying to put a stop to it.
I love that. So I'm going to shift into more specific questions that our audience had. So we're going to start with this question. As someone who mainly does camera, do you think that it's important to branch out and try new positions or remain firm and certain about the path that they're taking? I think Madison and Beth Ann touched on this a little bit, but it's giving that this person wants to learn new skills, but they don't want to end up straying away from their focus.
I can give a perspective on this. I strongly, strongly, strongly think you should try everything. And if you like camera, think about every single position, how it affects you on the camera. But I think it's super important that you understand, you know, from a director's perspective, when they want this shot and when they're like, come on, come on, come on, you got to get there, why are they saying that? It's because they've sat on this shot for 10 seconds and they need to get somewhere, and you're the one that can get it for you. I think doing every single position, I'm not saying do it for a long time at all, but try each of them. And if you don't want to be the one in the chair, shadow each of them. But if you know how each position works and how each position works with each other, I think that's only going to make you a better camera operator.
I think that there are also good pathways for if a camera operator to you're listening to the director, but hit your return sometimes and see the patterns of the shots that the director is taking and the cadence and how they're saying the words, because I really think that camera can lead to other positions pretty naturally. Camera leads to a V1 position, or camera can lead to a TD position if you want to get into the control room, and TD can lead to directing. And I think it's important that you listen and you kind of put together the dots on the camera shifts that you do have, and then beyond that, just letting people know that you're interested in learning other things. That's the first step, and then just kind of stepping up, asking questions, and kind of proving yourself in whatever other roles you get the opportunity to step into, because everything leads to something else, and everything works together when it comes to a production. So you can learn important things in any role that you're in.
I think that if you're doing freelance camera operation, I think that it's going to be a little bit hard, because once you get into like an organization like PPI or Ming or any of those industries, they're going to see you as a camera person, right? So I think that it would behoove you to think about what is it that you like about running camera. Do you want to do that in different sports? Do you want to do it in different states? Like, do you like to understand the way the lenses work? Is there more technical aspects of the camera that interest you? And I think that while you're doing some of those jobs, like, I mean, definitely I was a camera operator and I got a lot of experience, and now I do senior video for Major League Sports. So it's because I wanted to understand, how the lens worked, how that makes the picture, all that kind of stuff. But I think definitely you have to be aware and cognizant of if you're going to freelance and you come in as a camera operator, that's what they're going to staff you at. And the likelihood that they're going to change you into something else, you're going to have to work pretty hard to overcome that. So just something to think about.
That is the beauty of I think the school control rooms too, is that because we, I guess, have less setup per game, and we're all still learning. So it's your best environment for trying everything that you can before you really commit to being a freelance camera operator. I think that the school control rooms are the best place that you have to get that experience.
One more question before we switch over into our networking questions. I know we had a lot about those, so I want to leave some time for that. But Addie, I think this might be a good question for you. So this question says, for those students aiming to work in broadcast engineering, which software, equipment, or technical skills are the most important to master before graduating?
So if you're trying to do broadcast engineering, I would say you better learn networking. You better spend a lot of time learning networking and learning switches, learning routers, how a router works, like all of those things. If you're going to be, okay, let me walk that back. It depends on what type of broadcast engineer you're going to be. Are you going to be a broadcast engineer that works on a truck that does video engineering? Are you going to be transmission engineering? Are you going to be, like, there's all different types of broadcast engineering kinds of positions. Now at Weather Channel, broadcast engineering is very different. It's engineers on demand, which means that they kind of have to have a little bit of knowledge about everything. So like you're going to have to know about routers and networking switches and all that kind of stuff. I would say you pretty much really need to focus on the old model of broadcast engineering was you should learn how to solder, you should learn, get some electrician experience and stuff like that. You should maybe even be electrician certified. But I would say that's old, and nobody's doing that anymore. And that is a very outdated way to look at it. And if anybody's telling you to do that, that's bad advice. The advice you need is all networking. Every bit of it is networking. You need to understand NDI. You need to understand encoding. You need to understand decoding. You need to understand SRT streams and how to broadcast and transmit and stuff. Like all of those things are things that you're going to have to understand. But definitely, so I guess to boil it down, there's not any one particular software in general that I would say. I would say understand what it means to transmit. How are you transmitting? Where are you transmitting to? And what is the conduit you're going to use to get there, which is going to be the internet. And you better learn how to do like networking pretty heavy.
Perfect segue into our next pool of questions. So what would you guys say the best way to network with other schools and companies are? How would you land an internship or a job with them?
I'll share with you guys how I got my first job. It was a cold call. I was getting ready to graduate from college, Arkansas State University, Sunbelt Conference. And I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? What is my job going to be? And like I said, I majored in broadcast journalism, but we kind of did more news, and that was really boring to me. So I was like, oh, I'll just stick with this coach's video stuff that I was doing as a student. And so I literally got on different college websites. I knew I wanted to be in a city in the South. So I was looking at like Nashville and Atlanta because I wanted to get out of Arkansas, but I didn't want to get too far away from home. And I just sent an email to a man named Andy Blanton at Georgia Tech, who ironically was not the coach's video person. It was the other guy on the website listed as video, and he basically said, "Okay, we'll set up an interview." And he called me on the phone, and we had like an hour-long conversation. And at the end of it, I was like, "You're talking to me like you hired me. Is this a job offer?" And he was like, "Screw it. I like how forward you are." And I moved to Atlanta 2 weeks later, and I've been here ever since. But the irony of that story is that Andy Blanton, the guy that I initially reached out to, ended up being my boss when I switched departments like 6 years later. But so I genuinely just took a chance. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't know I didn't know anybody except for my boss and coach's video. And Georgia Tech took a chance on me, and I've been there for 13 years now. So but networking is very important. You should always introduce yourself to people and ask them what they do. I've gotten a lot of my additional jobs, like freelancing gigs, from talking to people that freelance at Georgia Tech. And so, because Atlanta is such a beautiful, wonderful market for this industry, like, you can work with somebody on like the most low-level show ever, and they're probably going to be working like NBC Sunday Night Football or something. Like, you just have to talk. You have to speak to people, be kind, be interested in what they have to say. You know, don't listen just to talk. Like, actually listen to them.
I'll give a story. When I was still at KSU, I was a sports management major. I graduated as a sports management major, wasn't journalism or anything like that. I initially thought my path would be more business, more facility management, more social media. It wasn't until my second semester of sophomore year I took a sports broadcasting class, and I took it because it was an elective, and I was like, I'm kind of interested, maybe I'll do it. So I jumped into it, and I ended up falling in love with it. I love the idea of telling a story and editing and everything. But in that, I had the chance. One of the people they brought in to speak was Kevin Egan. Kevin Egan did WWE at the time, but he also was the play-by-play for Atlanta United when they were on Bally Sports, and now he's currently the host for MLS 360 and MLS on Apple TV now. I met him there. We connected there. I got his contact information. I sent him reels, but that was back in 2021. Back in 2024, when I started doing more stuff with Atlanta United, we were at the training ground. It was me and Jason walking out, and Kevin had just interviewed Brad. And he walked out, and he said hello to Jason. Jason was like, "Oh, Kevin, I don't know if you've met Maddie." And Kevin came over, gave me a hug. He's like, "Yeah, we've known each other for like 3 years now." Like, on and off conversation with Kevin. I would send him my reels. I'd update him on like what I'm doing and just, kind of keep that connection flowing. And now, I mean, he's someone that I'll call up on a random Tuesday and be like, "Hey, Kevin, I'm trying to figure out this open. What do you think about this? Does this flow correctly?" Like, Kevin's now one of my really close, like, I consider him one of my close colleagues now with that sense. And, but that's just from literally me sending an email, connecting with him one moment, and keeping that connection going. And that's another big element of it too, is when you make a networking connection, is sometimes it's how do you foster that network? How do you keep that relationship going? And a lot of times it is just as simple as giving an update of, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. I got a chance to do camera for this ESPN Plus production, and I did this," or, "Hey, I have this interview that I did. I'd love for you to take a look at it if you wouldn't mind taking some time to look at it." And it's that extra step of fostering that's going to help in the long run, because then you're filming that relationship. Because then later on down the line, they might be like, "Oh, hey, we need an extra person for this production. Actually, I think I know someone. Let me give them a call." And then you already have that relationship already built. So I think networking is so important, and it can literally just come from something like this, something just from on LinkedIn, sending a message and things like that. I mean, any networking event you can go to, I totally recommend it. Any chance you can get to go to a big networking event just to meet people, it's going to be the biggest thing in the world, because it's such a big industry. And there's so many people, but it's also so small where I feel like everybody knows each other, which is so fun. But that can help in the long run, I think, in just taking that extra step and finding those avenues of where you can meet more people and get your foot in the door.
So this next question, beyond traditional internships, what are some creative ways that college students can get hands-on experience or in the control room experience or commentating experiences? So besides GSPN, where we, have students come and work in the control room. Maddie, I know you mentioned that you used to prop your phone up and, do your takes all by yourself. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I can, it's a big thing. I was talking to a student at KSU earlier today about it as well. When I was with the KSU Alumni Network, a big thing that Nolan wanted us to do was a lot of our own stuff. My first play-by-play experience ever. I don't know if I still have the audio recording, and I'd be a shame if I didn't, but I might have deleted it. I don't know. It was me in a separate booth at Fifth Third Stadium calling the first half of a women's lacrosse game. And it was me on my phone. I literally took voice memo out. I hit record, and I just went. And I did it. That was the first time I ever did play-by-play. But what I did was it got me an opportunity to get the rep of me just doing a game, of me just, having it there. Then Nolan was able to look at it and able to give me some thoughts of what he thought, and it's that first step. Literally something as simple as that. It could be you, if it's a soccer match, you can literally mute your TV in your room, hit record, and just try to commentate it. Like something as simple as that, just getting reps that way. Because then it gets you in the flow of the game. You kind of get to feel things. You try things out. Because that's the best thing about having phones nowadays. You can create your own content. SDH, a lot of the videos that we shoot are on my phone. I edit them on my own using Adobe, using CapCut, using anything like that to create our content there as well. It's a lot of this industry, especially I think from the commentating standpoint, and a lot of like the actual like hosting and talking about it, a lot of it is making your own luck. It's a lot of creating your own stuff and just pushing it out there, because you're going to get more reps doing it that way. It's going to get more eyes on it that way too. And you build your resume as well. And I think that's the biggest thing, especially if you're starting out. Like, don't be afraid if you're at a random game and you want to pull out your phone and you want to talk about it and post it, do it. Absolutely do it. Because you don't need a network, or you don't need something to back it in that way. If you want to talk about it, talk about it. There's a friend of mine who I had actually in college. We don't talk that much anymore, but I've seen his stuff. His name is Cameron, and he does a lot of stuff. He started a podcast. I remember him talking about it in class, and he's still running it today, and it is doing really well. And so, like, you can create your own stuff on your own. That's the best part about it. You could buy a mic and just go. Like, sometimes creating your own stuff is the best way too, and that's the best step forward, because it helps you get reps, and then you kind of start to build that reputation for yourself. So when people are looking at you, they're like, oh, okay, like you already have stuff I can look at online. Because my Instagram is basically my reel at this point. You can go look at my Instagram and everything is there. So if an employer's looking like, oh, I want to go look, like, let's see what they have. My play-by-play's there, my hosting, like interviews, everything's all there. So sometimes you got to create your own content and create your own luck, honestly.
What you're saying is actually really important. So, because I kind of cross over, I do work with people who do film too. Like, I don't just do broadcast TV and sports and stuff. And we went to a seminar at Cinelease, which used to be Sony Screen Gems, but it's now Cinelease. And at Cinelease, they had all the financiers there talking about like what they were going to finance for films, and this is like real films. Like, this is like people from Warner Brothers, this is Paramount people. Like, they basically said, if you're not looking at content for YouTube or TikTok, don't waste our time. That is where it's going, and that is where it's going to go. And so, I mean, that's really an opportunity. I mean, in some ways it makes it tough, but it makes it in other ways more egalitarian, because it's giving everybody a chance to be seen. And I think that that's kind of the way of where everything's going right now anyway.
It's an untapped market too, especially YouTube, because YouTube, you can post anything there.
Absolutely.
You can post anything. It can be like a 5-minute interview. It can be a full-length podcast. It can be audio. It can be video. It can be anything. TikTok's the same way too, because I mean, I feel like with Instagram, it's funny we talk about it. This is something Jason and I talk about with SDH, and being the chief content officer with that, like how to navigate what posting on what social media platform. Instagram is such a unique type of, I think, algorithm. TikTok doesn't have that. TikTok is just, all right, you can post whenever, and it might go viral, it might not, but who knows? It could be the most random thing I post, and I'll get like 1 million views, and I'm like, that's what gets 1 million views? And I'm like, okay, cool. And like YouTube's the same thing. Like, you never know what video someone's gonna see, and it's just gonna blow up. But you don't know until you take the step to do it.
Yeah, and I really hate to like take this to a different place, because this isn't the question that was asked. But I would say if I was a student, a really important thing to do would be to study what other people are consuming. I would say study what they're consuming, where they're consuming it, how they're consuming it. Are they watching it on their mobile devices? Because some of us are older here, and I'm just going to say the way we consume content is different than the way somebody who is 20 years old is going to consume content. And if you're going to make it in this industry, it's an entertainment-based industry, you're going to have to learn what the long-term goal and game is going to be. And to do that, you have to stay current with what people are watching, how they're watching it, and what it means to them. I mean, I know there's people on Instagram and on TikTok who are creating serial content for those platforms, and they're getting millions of viewers, and they're getting sponsorships and all kinds of stuff. So, some of us are up here talking about, TV and broadcast stuff, but there really is a changing world coming when it comes to all of this. Like, I think eventually there's going to be a lot more sports snippets on places like TikTok. Obviously there's lots of stuff on YouTube. So I think that really paying attention to, how content is being consumed, what kinds of content is going to be important, because that's going to decide for you where you want to go and what you want to do. That's going to help you decide like where the opportunities are going to be, is by knowing what everybody else, like what common culture is doing right now, I think is important.
So we have time for one more question. Last question, what advice do you have for us moving up within the industry or moving up working at a university?
I think just show up, mostly. I say that as a crewer. Please show up if I put you on a shift. But also, just making sure that you prioritize working. I think all of us up here probably have prioritized working above a lot of things. That's not to say that you shouldn't have a life. You should definitely have a life, and there are a lot of things that are more important than work. But I think just making sure that you really, if you're committed to being in this industry, commit to showing up. And when I say show up, I mean not just show up for your shift and do it and go home. I mean, if people are breaking down after the game and it's not necessarily your equipment that needs to be broken down, go help somebody else. That's how you network. That's how you talk to people. Maybe they have a shift coming up that they need covered, and they could recommend you for that shift, and you have a new opportunity. It's all word of mouth. It is a small industry. We all talk. We all know of freelancers and other people in the industry, and we will recommend other people based on how they have performed and how they have gone the extra mile to stay and help with things that weren't necessarily in their scope. And I think that that's just really important to not just do what you're assigned. Go above and beyond whenever you have the chance.
I have sort of like a two-part answer to that. I think the first thing is be ready to be nimble. Things are not going to go how you think they're going to go pretty much every single day, and you have to be comfortable with changing that. You have to be comfortable being nimble. I truly can't tell you how many times we yell that in the middle of a show. Something goes wrong, and we're like, okay, now we're going to be nimble. And you just have to be ready for that. And if that's not something that you're comfortable with, find a way to make yourself comfortable with it. And then the other thing that I would say, watch every single one of your shows back. It sometimes is boring. Make it fun. Make a drinking game out of it. Do whatever it is. We've done that before. Do whatever it is, but watch your shows back, because so many times you'll be in a show and you'll think you made a catastrophic mistake, and you will watch it back and you'll be like, that was nothing. Nobody at home would even understand that or know that that happened. There'll be times when there'll be an editorial storyline that you left on the cutting room floor, and then you'll go home and watch it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that was the moment right there. We decided to show this nothing replay of a 3-yard run. That could have been our moment to tell that story. So truly, I understand it. It's not always fun. You just worked a show the night before, and now you're going to rewatch it. You're like, I just saw it last night. But watching it from a different lens, I can't even stress to you how much you're going to learn from that. And that probably is the biggest learning tool I have on a show-to-show basis, is watching it back, figuring out what I missed, figuring out what I messed up, and figuring out where you can be better moving forward.
God, if I had a drinking game for watching my shows back, it'd be how many times does she say like in this thing? I'd be plastered, and it would not be good.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you may not notice it when you're saying
no, you're not going to notice it.
But
like
then
I
you
noticed,
watch it back and you're like,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
I noticed the other day, Jason calls me out on it. I would brilliant has become a term that I've clung to. And if I watch back a match and I probably see the amount of time to say brilliant, I wouldn't be walking. I'd be on the floor. I have two kind of as well. One is I think just don't be afraid, I think, to take a chance. I think especially as a broadcaster, it can be really easy, I think, especially too, to kind of get stuck in one spot and to really like, I think try to think one thing. I always thought sideline would be the way I would go. I always thought sideline was going to be where I would stick. That was the end all be all for me. It wasn't until I realized I could do soccer and do play-by-play with it that I was like, okay, wow, yeah, this is the dream now. This is it. And I think don't be afraid to take that chance. And I think right now, especially being in college, you have the opportunity to kind of create your own chance. And so do that. Like, create your own opportunities and don't be afraid to do it, because that's so important. And then my last one is just be authentically you. Seriously, like that's the big, and on camera, if you're not being you and you're being a different version of yourself, people can tell. People can tell every single time. And no one wants to work with someone who isn't who they are. And that's why you're going to get hired. That's why people are going to want to work with you, because they're you. Every single one of us are unique. Bring that uniqueness when you're doing anything, whether you're in the control room, production, on camera, because that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to set you apart. And that's what's going to make you, I hate to say marketable, but I mean, you do got to kind of think about it, especially being on camera. Yeah, like what makes you marketable is being you, is being who you are. So don't hide it. Don't feel like you have to diminish it or like, shine away from it to kind of fit what the mold is already out there in media and in the space. Be who you are, because that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to set you apart at the end of the day.
Mine's more generic life advice, but it definitely applies to a job in this field if that's what you're interested in. I've had a couple of, I guess, turning points in my career where like I had to switch from football to broadcast, or recently last year I had a really good appetizing offer that made me consider leaving Georgia Tech. And I would stay up at night. I'm stressing over these decisions. What's the right thing to do? What's the right thing to do? Do I stick with camera? Do I try other things? Do I want to be an on-air personality? Do I want to work behind the scenes? Make your decision be the right decision. That's what one of my parents told me. And it has been transformative for me. If you make a decision, make it the right decision, right? Work hard and make it be a positive outcome for you. Because if you're having those kind of questions, you clearly you care about what you're doing in your life, right? So just put in the work and make it work for you.
I would say for myself, the advice that I would give somebody who wants to move up, don't be afraid to sell yourself personally to somebody who's further along than you. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody, like especially women, I've had women come up to me on a job and be like, I've never seen a woman doing your technical role, and I don't want to do this typical role that women are doing. Can you help me? I can help you. I've given classes to people for free on my own time. If somebody is willing to show me that they care and they really want to do something more and they want their life to mean something different to them, I will move heaven and earth to help them get that. I will do whatever it takes. I've made jobs for people. I've taken people as a B1, which is senior video engineer for, like a sports broadcast. I took somebody who had, I don't want to say this, but they had like not really worked a whole lot as a V2. And I took them as a V2. They made my job exponentially harder. Like, it was a rough day for me, But I took them there, and I taught them everything they needed to know, and now they get jobs on their own doing it, and they're prepared to take those jobs. So if you're willing to take the risk to tell somebody, hey, I really want help, and I want to do what you're doing, there's people out there who will help you do it. So I would say just ask.
That is all we have time for.
That's it. Everybody give them a round of applause. Big warm applause to our panelists. Thank you, everybody. I think that's all we have. Unless you guys have any closing things. I think that was a lovely way to end it, though. Okay, awesome. We're going to walk our way out of here, and we're going to meander our way out of here. Y'all will be here for a few minutes before we make it out if you want to say anything to the panelists, but we probably won't be here for long, so make it quick.